Ray Dalio, one of the world's leading stock pickers and economists, just released one of the greatest world economic videos I've ever seen.
The Changing World Order.
In it, he talks about the coming of a new world order, claiming that the United States may no longer be the top dog of world political and economic affairs. A lot of YouTubers have touched on this, and they've implied that he's right, but none of them have critically discussed if he could be wrong, and more importantly, no videos have discussed the implications of what might happen if he's right or wrong. So if you're now wondering,
what does this all mean? And how do I prepare for a new world order?
Do not fear, I will tell you. Today I'm going to break down what each scenario could mean, what you need to consider, and what I plan on doing. But the only way to stay the most informed is to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. And for those wondering, my voice is a little bit weird and different today because I'm still recovering from the spicy cough. It finally got me. Now, time is money and I don't plan on wasting yours, so let's get into it. To make it super convenient for you, I'll do a really high-level summary of Dalio's 43-minute video. I'll also leave a link to the video down in my description. But here's the summary. Basically, every so often, and it hasn't happened in our lifetimes, maybe our great-grandparents' lifetime, the world order changes.
And they did. It was a sign of the changing world order.
This means the highest economic and political power on the planet gets overthrown by someone else. In his video, Dalio discusses the symptoms or the causes which leads to one power overthrowing another. These include things like internal political conflict, an increasing wealth gap, external conflicts, and economic mismanagement due to governments trying to understand and fix those conflicts. Dalio is now warning that the United States is in this period where it could be overthrown by another power because it's showing these causes or symptoms. Now, who's the contender? China. Now, Dalio is a smart guy and he wouldn't be saying this without good reason. Since China started reforming its economy in 1978, its GDP has grown at about 10% every single year on average. That's super impressive. And they've also lifted 800 million people out of poverty. They've been using the economic principle of capitalism to do this. But in his video, Dalio demonstrates that the United States is lacking these crucial ingredients that allow it to remain a superpower. But on the flip side, he's saying that China is actually increasing in these fields or ingredients. So, do I think that China will continue to rise politically and economically? Probably. But will they become a dominant superpower or the global world leader? I'm not so sure.
But Jordan, if Dalio is right, and this is a new world order, and China becomes a new superpower, then what should I do?
I'll get to that in the end. First, I think it's more important to discuss why Ray Dalio might be wrong, and also why you should be a little bit skeptical of his opinions. First, whether rightly or wrongly, Ray Dalio has significant pro-China bias. This is something that you really need to consider when you're taking his word as gospel, because it could mean that he's overlooked some really important points. A big one is that the rest of the world doesn't really trust China, and for the most part, China doesn't really trust the rest of the world. There seems to be, at least in the West, a very us versus them dichotomy, which causes tension on both sides. Politics aside, that distrust is going to cause issues economically when trade partnerships fall apart. It's kind of hard to be a global leader when no one wants to follow you. Another interesting point that I've been reading is that China is kind of like Japan in the 1980s. Basically, they're expanding so fast and so rapidly that they're creating their own bubble, and the question remains, will this bubble pop? If you ask me, I'm not so sure. China has a lot of land, a lot of manpower, and a lot of technical advancements to continue allowing it to rise and become that global superpower, at least economically. But it's interesting to consider. Another thing to consider is that Dalio in his video raises this big point that
Reserve currency. A reserve currency is a currency that is commonly accepted around the world.
to become a global reserve currency, you get all these special economic powers. Basically, you get access to financing and trading that those who don't have the global reserve currency miss out on. But a major point against Dalio is that China doesn't want the yuan to become the global reserve currency. At least not yet.
Why wouldn't they?
Well, there's actually some significant negatives to that. This includes giving up your control over how your currency is traded and used. Currently, China uses this to their advantage.
Jordan, you're talking a lot about China. What about America?
Great point. What I found fascinating about this video is that you have an American, Ray Dalio, discussing how China is going to become a new world leader. The fact that America has these amazing thinkers like Ray Dalio and allows them to think out loud creates this kind of discourse and raises these issues. Once a problem is identified, it's a lot easier to fix. Also, America has been a world leader for a long time, and for good reason. America still has some of the world's largest companies, which are at the forefront of technological advancement and data processing. This is going to be the ultimate tool or weapon in the future.
Thanks for your analysis, Jordan, but what does this mean for investors?
Well, if China doesn't become the next superpower, everything kind of remains on course. That being, America remains at the top of the food chain, but doesn't really advance that much. On the other side, China will continue to progress economically, but with no real desire to be a world power. For me, I'd be looking to diversify my assets into China, because if they're going to be proceeding to increase their dominance as an economic power, that's somewhere I want my money. That's because it suits my personal investing style, because there are some major risks with investing in China. I've actually gone through all of these risks in a previous video, link up top.
Okay, Jordan, but what if Ray Dalio is right and China actually becomes the new world order, the global superpower? He's a pretty smart guy, right? What might that mean for the world and for investors?
This could mean a few things, and it gets kind of interesting. The most obvious is that China would become the world's economic and political superpower. If the yuan becomes the world's reserve currency, their economic development will progress astronomically. This could mean companies in China do really well. So looking at companies or ETFs that deal with China or invest in China could be a good option. But emerging market ETFs and stocks like China beating America isn't really a new thing. As I mentioned in a previous video, from August 2001 to 2021, the China index produced a return of 12.3% per annum, outperforming the 9.3% of the S&P 500. So it's not like considering investing in China should come as any shock. But of course, not financial advice, just my personal opinion looking at the historic data. Something really interesting is if China becomes the new world order, and yuan doesn't become the world's reserve currency, well, alternative currencies could do really well. This includes everyone's favorite cryptocurrencies. I'm not so sure about this because I think eventually China will want the yuan to become the world's reserve currency. There's too many benefits not to. But still, cryptocurrencies may benefit in some kind of way. That's like the silver linings or the good things, but if Ray Dalio is right, that also means that the United States or America will suffer economically. If the US dollar is no longer the world's reserve currency, then those benefits that they've been receiving will disappear. This could really impact or slow down the American economy, and with it, the American companies. Could this mean that the S&P 500 is no longer the type of investment it once was? Possibly. If anything's true from Ray Dalio's video, it's that empires rise and fall. America as a world leader will end at some point. However, I wouldn't be so quick to take Ray Dalio's opinion as fact, in that China will become the new world leader, and it will happen sooner rather than later. What I think will be more likely is that there'll be a system of regional economic powers, instead of one major power. But that's probably a little far down the track. I just recently read Homo Deus, and I actually think the new world order will be the worshipping of the religion of big data or dataism. Who really knows? There's so much to consider and there's so many variables. Cultural differences as well, like the US, the UK, Spain, Europe, they have very different outlooks and different opinions about how the globe should be connected. They think more globally. China's history tells a very different story. They mostly worry about themselves and internally. So how they're going to react to bigger world events on a global scale will be very different to the Western world. They may become the next global powerhouse in terms of economic and political power, and then do nothing with it other than just be rich in China. But no matter what happens, China's rise has had a significant impact on the world economy and the world's political powers, and it would be foolish to ignore. Do you like learning about world global events and how they affect investors? Well, you better hit that like and subscribe button. Next step for you, do some more research and figure out what you think is going to happen, and whether or not it's going to impact you as an investor, and if you should make any changes at all. If you already have some opinions, and I think you might, leave a comment down below and let me know what you're thinking. For me, I'm going to continue diversifying my assets and buying opportunities where I see them. Oh, of course, check out another video here, or here, and I'll see you again soon.